Well, yesterday was Lunar New Year, and it is starting the year of the dragon. And I have this poem that I found, and it's actually called Poem About the Dragon that I'm going to share today. So just take it in and think about this year that giving us strength. It's by Theodora Lau. I am an unquenchable fire, the center of all energy, a stout, heroic heart. I am the truth and light. I hold power and glory in my sway. My presence disperses dark clouds. I have been chosen to tame the fates. I am the dragon. Amen.
How can you blame the drowning man for not staying up, for not taking stand? Can you see that he knew how to stay home forever? He'd be laughing and riding waves of this life, sunshine and stormy weather. But there are storms outside, and there are storms within. Just when you think that you've weathered them all, another one begins. Oh, another one begins. Why is it so hard to see that if we want to learn to swim, we've got to stop using our hands to cling to everything. Oh, to cling to everything. So forgive all you've done and the times you've thrashed around, when in fighting to stay up on top, you've brought yourself on down. We don't need to be stuck connecting in the rivers of our thoughts, 'cause you know they'll only lead us down that same old lonesome canyon. And every breath we take, telling us to let go. And soon the skewed truth that binds us won't weigh us down anymore. No, they won't weigh us down anymore. So why is it so hard to see that we want to learn to swim? We've got to stop using our hands, cling to everything, oh, to cling to everything. We've got to stop using our hands, cling to everything.
Thank you, Laura. So everyone, Laura is a good friend of mine, and so is Dawn, her imaginary friend sitting next to her there. Dawn is one of the first musicians I worked with when I started being a musician professionally back in the 1900s. And anyway, and I'm glad we could be blessed with Laura's beautiful voice, and what a nice selection today. And I hope there'll be another time when we can hear the whole production of Dawn and Laura. Anyway, as always, I'm really delighted to be here with my community, my dear friends, and share what's been on my mind. And for one thing, some of you might know that my little baby daughter, who you've known since she was a little baby daughter, we're looking at colleges for her now, and taking some college trips. She's a high school junior, and it does have me thinking about when I started college many years ago, and she's so much more together than I was. So I'm really impressed by her. And I remember the beginning of college for me signing up for Philosophy 101. And I sounded great. And there I was. It was a class of about 45 students. And I was sitting, at the front because I'm a studious person. And the professor posed the opening question: what is justice? So there was a lot of discussion over about 90 minutes. And I don't know if I said anything, but I was definitely listening, paying attention, because I wanted to know. And we discussed that for the whole class. What is justice? And then the class ended and we were dismissed and we wandered off. Came back a couple of days later for class number 2. And the professor opened up the class with the question, what is justice? I couldn't believe it. Okay. But finally, we we're going to get to the answer, I figured, right? And so there's more discussion, more discussion. And then all of a sudden, with no introduction, I mean, she just pivots and says, what is humility? And I was so mad because I thought, first of all, you spend an hour and a half talking about what is justice. You never even gave us the answer. And now you're moving on to something else. I didn't sign up just for a bunch of speculation. If we want to know what justice is, look it up. I was just so disappointed. And by the way, for today, I did look it up. I was kind of curious after all these years. Justice is the quality of being fair and reasonable, or the administration of the law or authority in maintaining this. But in that freshman class, I didn't get that answer. I didn't get any answer. I just got questions. And I was appalled because I guess I was the kind of person who was looking for answers. I didn't know that school would be a place where you learn to hang out with questions. I didn't really stick around for much of the discussion on humility. I actually dropped the class. I didn't go back because I was like, well, I'm not hanging around just to hear a bunch of my classmates speculate. And it might have been better if I had started my studies of philosophy with a line from Socrates: the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. But I have a feeling my brain would have rejected that idea like bad medicine. So now here we are, it's 2024, and I have some new materials and some new resources. So I was reading Myrtle Fillmore's How to Let God Help You, and one of the essays is called Life is a School, handy title. And I love this beautiful line: as lives the flower in the seed, so lives the Christ in me. As lives the flower in the seed, so lives the Christ in me. What a beautiful statement of pure faith. No explanation, right? Just faith. Now, I have planted a lot of flowers, and I absolutely never question, is the flower in the seed? I get excited about it. I marvel at it, but never do I worry that it won't bloom unless I master the horticultural intricacies. I just know it's there. As a new college freshman, I imagined that there were truths that were absolute and absolutely available to me. And that's what I was there for. Now, the main thing that I didn't know at that point in my life wasn't what justice is. The main thing I didn't know was simply how much there is that I don't know, and that I don't need to know, and that I'm just not meant to know. And I hadn't thought to wonder about the flower and the seed, and I had certainly not thought to wonder about the Christ in me. Some of this brought to mind the line, ignorance is bliss. And the line usually means you're happier because the knowledge would be bad news, right? So you're better off not knowing. But I'd like to flip it. Maybe being ignorant is blissful when it simply means that I know all is well. I'm not trying to know everything. God, the one mind, has a handle on all there is to be known. And that actually does feel really blissful to me, not needing to know everything, not needing to figure it out, just being at peace. In Unity, we're such a thinking bunch. We have our phenomenal library of materials, and many of us have at home our bookshelves filled with great Unity books. lately I've been thinking about the 12 powers, and I brought that up when I did the releasing bowl ceremony a couple of months ago. So the 12 powers, I mean, that's a lot of information, right? And I always looked at that as like, wow, that'll be a lot. When I can get those, then I've got some answers. I was studying them like one or two at a time because I found that reading the whole book on the 12 powers and trying to get the whole 12 powers, I couldn't do it. It was too much for my brain, but I could take it one or two at a time. I recommend it. Why not? That's a good idea. But here's the thing. Here's what I realized, that I was studying the 12 powers in order to know the 12 powers, which is missing the point. What I really want is to understand the 12 powers so that I can know God, know the expression of God that I embody. And I guess since I'm somebody who's always thinking there's an answer, studying unity teachings fills me with a real can-do sensibility because there's so much knowledge to soak up. I just received this week the SEE course listings for Gaithersburg, the unity teachings that they offer, and I get really excited, right? What can I study? I mean, can you imagine? I'm looking at college catalogs with Dorothy and I'm thinking, I want to go back and study this too, right? It's fun. Yeah, I can actually get kind of puffed up like I am gaining so much knowledge. But what is it that we're really trying to do? It's not knowledge here, right? It's understanding, it's peacefulness, it's knowing. It's not just in our hearts, it's in our whole being. How do we get closer to God? Let Emily Cady tell you. Let Emmett Fox tell you. Let Charles Fillmore tell you how. But somewhere in Lessons in Truth, this unity textbook, Lessons in Truth, Emily Cady tells us we cannot find our spiritual understanding in a book. She says, don't look for it in a book. But I remember very well reading this in her book. So confusing. So unity is a school, after all. It is a church, but it's a lot like a school. It's kind of a religion, but it's not really, to me, like a religion, because I think of religions as being about rules and regulations, and that's not really quite what we are. Reverend Seymour used to call us an activity of spirit. I like that a lot. The Unity School of Practical Christianity, old name, we are an activity of spirit. And I still have to learn that school is not necessarily a place you go for definitive, absolute answers. It's a very good place to go to hang out with questions. And as Rilke asked us, can we love the questions? Can we love the mystery? Can we love all the moments that come before the conclusion and just love being in those moments before the conclusion? I mean, we don't go to the symphony to see how it ends. We go to be there, to be carried along in that current wave, whatever it is, of what happens now, the sounds and the space. I'll just throw out a side note. It's kind of related, but it's just personal. 2023 was a very odd year for me. It was a year of a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty. I think that it brought out the extra studious in me because I was trying to get information because so much was unsettled. And I wanted to reach conclusions and nail stuff down, but some things are just not ready. They're just not, they can't be rushed. And sure enough, 2023 was an odd, unsettled year, but by January 2024, I knew a lot more about my circumstances and myself than I could have known during 2023. It wasn't that I wasn't smart enough in 2023. It was just that it wasn't time to know yet. Things take time. I do try so hard to have certainty all the time. It's a habit, but we can put certainty on hold. And I think that is a kind of humility, letting go of what we imagine to be the power that we think we've got. I've got the power to know this, so let me know it. You know what I think I need to activate? Maybe you too. That is my power of surrender. It is not one of the 12 powers, but I'm adding it. I tried to see if this idea would fit under the power of faith or the power of release, which are both among the 12 powers, but it's not exactly the same. The power of surrender, which we know is so important to us as I'm seeing it, it's that beautiful experience that we all have from time to time when we quit struggling, quit trying, and just say, okay, God, you do it. You're in charge, and I'm totally okay with that. In fact, thank God, I don't need to know this. I don't need to be in charge. I mean, that has to be one of our greatest powers. That beautiful letting go. Laura's song said, you know, we're grasping. If we would just let go, that's our answer. So spiritual surrender. What is spiritual surrender? Well, we're not able to arrive at certainty sometimes. So is it, well, I surrender because I don't want to know. I surrender because I don't need to know. Or simply, I surrender because I like surprises and you've always handled it so far. Just some kind of spiritual surrender. I think spiritual surrender might be a step on the path to spiritual humility. Yeah, spiritual surrender is part of how we get to spiritual humility. So I was reading a book. See how studious I am reading all these books. I was reading a book lately. It's called The Jesus Code. Dorothy said, why are you reading all these books about Jesus lately? She doesn't understand. Anyway, we all, in her time. Okay, so I was reading the Jesus Code, and it had the topic of spiritual humility. And here's how it defined it. True humility means being open and receptive to new ideas. It is the consciousness of assent, a willingness to be shown the higher path through the surrender of the ego. I wish I had offered that answer my freshman year in college when the professor said, what is humility? So it's letting go, right? The ego, the carnal mind, the consciousness of materiality. It means a lot to us. It's kind of how we start off with Adam consciousness. But we can surrender all that ego-bound self-will to seize a finite answer and then allow. And what are we allowing? Well, part of it is that we don't know, but we're allowing some kind of insight. We're allowing inspiration. We're allowing space. You know, Byron Katie tells us to love what is, because to argue with reality is to get into a losing battle. So there it is, love what is. And I think spiritual surrender says, yeah, love what is, even when you don't know what is. Just love. Just be love, be with whatever it is, with love. And when we align with spirit, we can do that. It's much more powerful than any amount of grasping for answers. C.S. Lewis said, when I set these questions before God, I get no answer, but a rather special sort of no answer. Like, peace, child, you don't understand. And that's comforting. I think of a comforting voice like Reverend Seymour. I can imagine him saying to me when I'm struggling with some idea or something that's not coming clear to me, I can imagine his voice saying, peace, child, you don't understand. And it's the opposite of a dismissal. It's an embrace. It's an acceptance of who I am, where I am. I don't need to understand everything. So can we hang out with that? With peace, child, you don't understand. Sometimes there's comfort in not knowing, which is a good thing because we all have a lot of that ahead of us. There's a comedian, Sheng Wang. He said that as a child, he would go into the library and gaze at all the books on the shelves and say, wow, as I grow up, this is all stuff I get to learn. And that now as an adult, he goes into the same library, gazes at all the books and says, this is all the stuff I will never know. That is the evolution of awareness. And that is humility and being at peace with it. That's spiritual humility. I don't know. Do you know, are you familiar with Stephen Mitchell? He's a wonderful author and translator and has offered beautiful translations of some of the all kinds of sacred texts. And so I was reading recently his book, Joseph and the Way of Forgiveness. Really beautiful. And by the way, on his audiobooks, which are on Audible. He reads them himself and he does it beautifully. So, little recommendation there. So in this one, he's recounting the story of Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers. And in the story, in spite of his horrible misfortune, he actually becomes immensely powerful and wealthy. And ultimately, decades later, he's in a position to save his brothers, along with their father, from starvation during a time of famine. And the author describes the periods of unknowing that Joseph endured, times when he really didn't know where his life would take him. And here's what grabbed me. Joseph discovered that faith has nothing to do with what we believe. Instead, it's the realization that what we can't know is wiser than all our knowing. He was at ease with the not knowing, whether it would last 7 minutes or 7 years. He would know when he needed to know and not a moment before. And that struck me as true spiritual humility and as a necessary step toward spiritual oneness. There's a Buddhist teaching that whatever we know, we want to hold on to it lightly, right? The not grasping, so that we're able to be open to more. That by not holding tightly to what we feel we know, we can still experience wonder. We're more creative, more open to possibilities. This is how we welcome not knowing. Really, as much as we enjoy and benefit from the intellectual pursuits, and we do have all these wonderful books to read, and as much as we are capable of aligning with divine mind and knowing truth, let us also welcome the peace of knowing that we don't have to know it all. This is faith. This is surrender. This is loving the questions. This is spiritual humility. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said, I will give you what no eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard, no hand has ever touched, and no human mind has ever taught. Spiritual truth comes through us, not to us. All the study, all the literature, all the information, all the deliberation, these are all useful prompts. But those aren't the answers. For that, we have to go within, to the secret place within. Fulfillment, spiritual fulfillment, it can't come through study and intellectual epiphanies. There's value in the learning, but there is God in the merely being, in allowing to be like Joseph, to be at ease with the not knowing. And if you, like me, sometimes find yourself yearning for certainty, and scouring the landscape of ideas for the answers that make it all add up, can we find peace with not knowing? It turns out that peace of not knowing is greater than the peace of knowing. It's more certain. Because the peace of knowing depends on ourselves. The peace and the ease of not knowing places ourselves in the hands of spirit, the one cause, the one source, the creator of all that is, and the knower of all that is. From Carol Hauslander, a Catholic poet and mystic, she said, our realization of our oneness with Christ is the only cure for human loneliness. And I believe that it's also the only cure for the restlessness that comes from incessantly seeking answers, our realization of our oneness in Christ. Then we can stop looking outside ourselves for truths, little truths. And because when we're looking for all the little truths, we're forgetting the larger truth, the infinite truth, which we absolutely can find when we tune into that still small voice within, which is there with you wherever you go. So the questions are these: can we be attentive rather than seeking? Patient rather than eager? Can we be open rather than grasping? And can we be spiritually humble rather than merely curious? This is about information versus transformation, going from believing to being. That's what contemplation gives us. Richard Rohr, my new favorite, he says, and this is my new favorite book, The Universal Christ. I cannot recommend it enough. And one of the things he does in this book that is so great is he tells you early on, probably in the introduction, that if you can, as you're reading this, when you get to one of the italicized lines, spend some time just meditating or, being with the line. So you don't just race through line to line to line to line to line. And kind of every page has one of those italicized lines. And they're always lines that could be like one of our affirmations in our Sunday service. They're really good lines. And it helps me not just race through the book, but stop and be with it. Emmett Fox says there's 3 layers of meaning to every story: the literal meaning, the metaphysical/metaphorical meaning, and then the personal change that it causes within you. That's the 3rd layer. And when we rush or we grasp or we insist on definite answers, we're sabotaging that 3rd layer, the effect, by getting all analytical and brainy about it. So yeah, after the mental beliefs, which we've got, then I find the calm and hopeful trust. Oh, and Richard Rohr said one other thing that I wrote down for you, and it was this: from the beginning, Yahweh let the Jewish people know that no right word would ever contain God's infinite mystery. Loving anything always means a certain giving up of control. So since I seem to love answers to questions, I will offer an answer to the title question: what is spiritual humility? Spiritual humility is power, the one power. Being open to hanging out with the questions, the mystery, is the same as opening to oneness with the one power. All right, that's where I am today. Thank you for letting me share that with you. Let's prepare for meditation. And I'll sing, and we'll have the slide with the words to our thoughts, our prayers, and everyone, just wherever you are, feel free to join and sing along. And I think you know the words. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Take charge of what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Now find yourself relaxed and comfortable. Relax or even close your eyes as you choose. Know that you are fully supported by the chair or wherever you are sitting or standing or lying down. Fully supported and fully supported in this universe and as one with the presence of God. And let these lines prompt some kind of, or stir some kind of peacefulness within you. As lives the flower in the seed, so lives the Christ in me. God, the one mind, knows all that is true, all that is real. Peace, child. You don't understand. And continuing in this meditation, tapping on the door of the secret place within, I invite you to let these words be your words. I gently hold what I know. Whatever is not yet mine to know, I am at peace with not knowing. I love the mystery of life. I love all the moments that precede the conclusion. I am open and receptive to new ideas, infinite possibilities. I'm willing to be shown the higher path through the surrender of the ego. I move through information and embrace transformation. I am one with the one power, the one presence. Now let these truths fill you up, clothe you, represent you, and reassure you. And prepare to gently set this meditation time aside, knowing that anything that has been of value to you, and certainly just anything that you needed, comes through for you today to guide you, to carry you through. You have all that you need. You are all that you need to be. And so it is.
This is written by Anne Hillman. We look with uncertainty beyond the old choices for clear-cut answers to a softer, more permeable aliveness, which is every moment at the brink of death. For something new is being born in us if we but let it. We stand at a new doorway, awaiting that which comes, daring to be human creatures, vulnerable to the beauty of existence, learning to love. Amen.
We are so blessed here at Unity Center DC for extraordinary speakers, talented musicians who share with us each week their God gift, their message, their inspiration. And for us as recipients, I'd like you to take this moment and be grateful. If you want to express your gratitude by giving a gift to Unity Center DC, it's possible. We'll put up on the screen the options, but you can give online, you can mail a cash or a check to the address you'll see on the screen, so that we can continue this ministry, which has blessed us all. Thank you.